Hello, everybody who's listening. My name is Julius Stauffer, and together with my very good friend, Guozi, or Mia, in the English name, we would like to start a new podcast, a new YouTube channel, or wherever you can listen to us or see us. And so in the beginning, of course, we would like to introduce ourselves before we will start reading Confucius and discuss the meaning of it also for our everyday life. So would you like to introduce yourself?
Of course, everyone. My name is Mia. I studied Chinese philosophy in Fudan University, and back then I studied classical Chinese with Julio and another friend of us. It was very good time for me. Every week we have one class, and we discuss about those very ancient texts as well as our lives, our struggles, and our happiness. And I think during that period, we really find that we can resonate with those ancient texts, despite the fact that they are 2,000 years ago. And I'm very honored to be invited by Julio to discuss this ancient text now. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. So I just have one comment. You said your name is Mia, and I also told everybody already that your Chinese name is Guozi. And
Mm-hmm.
I think it might not be familiar that people who haven't been to China, that's usual that people who come to China, so for example, me, I also
Mm-hmm.
get a Chinese name. So my Chinese name is Shiliao because, the Chinese characters, they don't sound exactly like in other languages. So there's not possible to say Julio. So it's
Mm-hmm.
Shiliao for me. And your name is Guozi. And so it's two characters. And maybe some listeners might wonder, does it sometimes also have another meaning, or is that not the case? What do you maybe just about the name before we go further?
Oh, yes. Actually, Guo is my family name.
Mm,
And in ancient text, Guo
mm,
means capital of a country.
okay.
Means the city part,
Mm-hmm.
and zi means diligent. So in Chinese, we
Mm,
have a 成语, which
mm,
means usually four characters or more that we have the usual meaning that everybody
mm,
agrees. So there is a 成语called 孜孜不倦. It means
mm.
somebody who is very diligent and never gets tired. I
Whoa,
think maybe
not
maybe
bad.
that's my parents' expectations for me.
Yeah,
But I
that's
would like a more relaxing life.
yeah, true.
Yeah.
But I'm sure that you have met the expectation. I mean, you are very diligent. I can clearly say that.
Yeah, I hope
And
so.
no, of course. And then, yeah, for my part as well. I mean, I came to China a few years ago and studied in Fudan with you, and you were my tutor for 2 years for the entire
Yes.
master, where I studied Chinese philosophy and culture. And it was really an amazing experience. And I think just for me, and I think what it will also be helpful for other English speaking listeners, is that uh, maybe you can read a passage from Confucius, but you might think you understand a little bit, but actually it's hard to understand it. And
Mm-hmm.
also, I was, for example, trying to translate it and thought I understood it, but then you told us that no, actually, uh, 2000 years ago or 2,500 years ago, it meant something different, and this is what you have to know. And I think that you will, of course, be able to offer a lot of context. And then, yeah, it was the same. It was not just interesting um, to learn what he wanted to say at the time, but also what we can learn. And I think that is something very unique that we can offer our listeners. Yeah.
Yeah, I hope so. Actually, classical Chinese is something that even Chinese people need to learn, need
Mm.
to spend some time and effort to understand. For example, I'm a middle school teacher. I teach Chinese now here in Shanghai, and every student they need to learn classical Chinese, which is 文言文, means Asian Chinese,
Mm.
from primary school to middle school or even high school. And then when they have the college entrance examination, they will you will need to do some questions about those classical questions. So
Mm.
classical Chinese, so it's quite hard actually. For example, the ancient Chinese texts, they don't have punctuations. They don't have, for example, like dot or period. So you don't know where to stop. And in ancient times, one of the job of the teachers is to teach the students when to stop. So you will find out the places that you stop will determine how you understand the passage. The difference is very obvious.
Wow, yeah, and that's just one reason why the text is quite difficult, and I'm sure we will get to that. But I think it's worth really finding out what the text is trying to say.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Do we want to go to our first passages of Confucius already?
Yes, of course.
Okay. So, yeah, we thought that at the beginning, maybe of each episode, we can go to a few passages and then, of course, start to discuss it. So I will share the screen so that people who also view the video can then see the Chinese characters that you are going to read for us, right? So let me just quickly share the screen. Okay. Can you see it?
Yes, I can see it now.
Okay, great. So let me just go to the right page. I made some notes so that I can find it fast. And what we are going to read is chapter 3.14. Mia, do you want to start? Maybe I can zoom in a bit.
In this chapter, Confucius said, 周监于二代，郁郁乎文哉，吾从周.
Yeah, and in English, he said, the master said, the Zhou is resplendent in culture, having before it the example of the two previous dynasties. I am for the Zhou. And resplendent, I had to look that up. It means something like brilliant in culture, right? So he's obviously praising the Zhou. So who are the Zhou? Do you already here want to make a comment, or do we first want to go to the next?
Yeah, we can have more text about the Confucius attitudes toward the Zhou dynasty.
Okay. Yes, let's do that. I will quickly go to the next passage that we have selected in advance, and that would be passage 7.5, where he is also talking about the Zhou. 7.5. Do you also want to read that passage?
Okay. 子曰：“甚矣，吾衰也！久矣，吾不复梦见周公。”
Thank you. And in English, that's the master said, "How I have gone downhill. It has been such a long time since I dreamt of the Duke of Zhou." So again, it seems that Zhou was very important role model. And then maybe we can go to the 7.1.
And also to add something, the Zhou Gong, the Duke of Zhou, he is the younger brother of Zhou Wang, a king of Zhou, and the king who, beat the Shang dynasty. And then Zhou governed the whole country. And the Duke of Zhou is known as a very capable ruler, capable governor, and as you said, he's a role model of the Confucius.
So yeah, maybe we can start going back a little bit to the history. So what we thought is that we show the listener and the viewer some evidence why the historical context is important, and Confucius himself really said that explicitly, that he's an admirer of the Zhou. I also looked a little bit into the history, of course, that came before Confucius. And what I, without trying to go into every detail, but what I think was also worth noting is that, I mean, there have been different dynasties before, the Xia dynasty, then the Shang dynasty. So that's even 2000 years before Christ in the Xia dynasty, or the Shang dynasty from 1700 years to 1100 years before Christ. And what is interesting there is that there was this, people were speaking about to their ancestors and also to like Shangdi. So in a way, somehow first ancestors of the Shang people with whom they spoke. And they tried to, and then later in the Zhou dynasty, they also had a similar, well, I don't want to say God, but a similar idea of heaven, of Tian, and also the idea that the ruler will get a mandate from heaven. So if you are a good ruler, or if you are virtuous, then you will receive the mandate from heaven, and then you will be able to rule. And for example, the way that the idea why the Shang dynasty fell and why the Zhou dynasty was able to take over was that the Shang dynasty, they say that they did not follow the rituals correctly. And then that's why the Zhou were able to take over. And so from what I've read is that the ritual correctness is very, very important. It will also be very, very important for Confucius. I knew that already, but it was very interesting for me to read that, okay, it already had even a religious, in a way, idea, right? That you have to follow the rituals, otherwise your state will fall. Is that something you agree to and would like to add something to the
Yes,
historical context?
I think people may misunderstand the rituals. The rituals is not just like a form. It is the show of the order of the whole country. It's in every detail of their lives. It means that you respect your how to say, the people who are above you, and also the people who have less power than you. They will respect you, and then the whole country is in good order. For example, the Confucius was very angry about a phenomenon, is that a people that should only use maybe 6 carriages, then he used 8. So it means that he destroy the order by destroy the rituals. So the rituals is not like our morning routine. This kind of rituals is really a representative of the whole country, whether it's well governed by order. And also, I think why Shang dynasty and also Zhou dynasty seems a little bit religious, that they also say that they need to say that my power comes from the heaven. It's because they need to find some kind of legitimacy. You know, before they overthrew the previous dynasty, they were the people of the previous dynasty. For example, the Zhou was once the subordinate part of Shang. So actually, when you overthrew the former dynasty, you are creating a rebellion, and it's not moral. So you have to justify why I can rebel, my upper class, my governor, my ruler. So they say that because you're governing, because your ruling is so violent, that the heaven won't let you to continue to rule this country. So in the name of the heaven, I need to overthrow you. So this make the act of overthrowing the former dynasty seems legitimate, seems moral.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for clarification and really seeing how these religious ideas influenced the society, but then also how connected all these ideas were. I think a last or one of the other things that was interesting for me when I studied the historical context is that the ritual, as far as I read it in the Shang Dynasty, was also in a way very religious, in a way that they were offering to the spirits. They offered something and they were asking whether maybe they get a favor. And then in the Zhou dynasty, those rituals became more in everyday life, also how you dress, how you wear, and so on. But maybe how you only behave. And then what Confucius did is he really emphasized that you should do it with sincerity. So you should not just, in a way, pretend or just do something, but really also feel it in a way. Is that fair to say?
Yes, yes, of course. For example, when you attend a funeral, the Confucius will think that your inner sorrow is more important than, for example, your tears. You don't need to cry so much, but he think if you're truly sorry for this man's, leaving, then they think that you are better. Yeah, but I think on the other hand, Confucius thinks that rituals can influence people. I think take us for example, when you listen to a kind of music, you just soak into the atmosphere. So is rituals. When you practice the rituals, actually you will find a sense of order. You will find you're in this kind of atmosphere, and maybe for example, when you're in the funeral, you do the rituals, it brings out your sorrow, it brings out your emotions. So I think it's quite a mutual thing, like your emotions leads to your rituals, and your rituals also influence and deepens your emotions.
Yeah, you said that beautifully. And just one or more comment that you made, because you mentioned music. And I've also, maybe the last thing that I would like to add is that Confucianism, or Confucius, of course, is the name for Master Kong. And we now talk about Confucius, but actually how the Confucians as a group of scholars are called in China is not the followers of Kong, but the Rujia, the Ru, from this word Ru. And I looked into it, and what I've read is that maybe there's a little bit of debate of what it exactly meant, but it seems to have been that they were a group of people even before Confucius, some group, even some professionals, and they were sort of specialized in preserving the rituals of the Zhou dynasty. But they also did if you look at the character of the Ru, it is related to the ritual dance and music. So I thought that at least according to some scholar, so that was very fascinating to me. And also I read that Ru and another, what it also is related to is the soft in a way. So not as the warriors who were of course, quite competitive and hard. The Ru, the people, these were the soft people who were had manners and were cultivated in a way. So I thought that was really cool to realize that, hey, there were people before Confucius who, in a way, were already similar.
Yes, yes. Thank you for your knowledge, because I didn't know this before. Actually, yes, yes.
Well, I also
And yes,
please.
I think the Ru have a longer history than Confucius. Even Confucius, I don't think he knows that, I created a school and it called Rujia. I think that's not the case, because the name is created, and it's not created but put to Confucius by the people later times. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I think that was a wonderful historical introduction, actually. So, and then we can actually go to the next passage. Let me just share the document again. So maybe let's read 7.1.
Yes.
Do you want to start?
Yes. 子曰：述而不作，信而好古，窃比于我老朋。
Thank you. And in English, that means the master said, I transmit, but do not innovate. I am truthful in what I say and devoted to antiquity. I venture to compare myself to our old Peng. Would you like to say something here?
I think this chapter is relevant or is linked to the previous chapters that we read, because Confucius, he take Zhou as a role model. He so much respected Zhou dynasty that he think his job is to is to transmit the knowledge that Zhou has, but not to make something new, not to innovate. And I think it seems very weird, I think, in modern times, because in nowadays people like Elon Musk, right? People like the innovators, we think we should create new ideas. But in Confucius' mind, he think that we absorb the great things in the past is more important because it's practiced and it has been proven to be true. So if I have some new ideas, maybe this is my personal thoughts. Maybe it's too risky. We don't know whether it's right or correct. But in the other hand, I think the Zhou dynasty or the Zhou the thoughts, the knowledge of Zhou dynasty is not completely true. That means that Confucius actually put some his thoughts to Zhou. What he thinks a good dynasty should be like, then he put it to Zhou. For example, when you have an idol, you like Taylor Swift, then you put every good qualities that you can imagine to her. But whether she has all of those good qualities, there is a big question mark. So it's the same for the relationships between Confucius and Zhou dynasty.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for adding that. I think it's very important. I think you also made the comparison with current Western culture, where we, of course, always think that, yeah, we believe in progress, technical progress, and everything else also, that we always had the new is better in a way, and we have to create everything new. I also thought it's, also related to Western philosophy in a way. If you read some Western philosophers, what they will always try to do is the opposite, not to try to say, I related to the earlier philosophers, but to say, no, my philosophy is entirely new. I put somehow the entire history of Western philosophy in a way on its head with my new philosophy, right? So in a way, almost the idea is to create something entirely new and to say that everyone else is wrong. But then sometimes or often you find that, of course, some of those ideas were already, at least to some degree, there in other philosophers. And I also think that it's interesting that it's not only in the ideal of Confucius that he believes that, but also in the way in which Chinese philosophy is done. So, for example, he himself in several passages, he also quotes other documents, the Book of Odes and the Book of Documents, so the Shuxing and the Shuzing. So he really tries to really only give a comment, right? He doesn't create something, he only comments. And after Confucius, many have done the same, that they only gave comments to Confucius, right? And that has been done for 2,000 years. So that's, in a way, it's very interesting to see that just how different in a way, the different method, if you will, of doing philosophy. I thought that was very, very interesting. And I think it also is, again, somehow also shows that it's valuable that we do this and we read the passages, but maybe also that we can give also some comments. So I've read, for example, that also in China, I think you already said it, it's not just that you read the original, you also read it with comments.
Yes.
Otherwise it's difficult to understand or even impossible. So for the translation, but also what others said about it. And maybe the work of Confucius itself is not even meant to just be able to read it, but really to understand what he said. And here I think it's also important to say that he didn't write it himself, but his scholars or the followers of Confucius later wrote it down, and it was also often small or short passages, and it was more of a conversation in a way.
Yes. Actually, I think it's because Chinese people, we are very humble. So we say that we just follow the path that our ancestors, had, and we only give some comments. But actually, the people's ideas are in those comments. So, for example, for Lunyu, for the Analects, I think there are maybe thousands of versions of comments. And by the all the scholars in 2000 years, and in every comments, I think maybe they have some similarities, but they also have some different opinions. And it's in those comments that their own idea shows up, but in a very humble way. It's not that I write a new book to demonstrate my idea, but I put it in my comments of the Analects. And also, I think you bring the Western philosophy. I think because maybe, I'm not sure whether it's correct. The Western people need to be more bold, more confident to be seen, maybe. So they have to say that I have some new ideas. But if you read really closely, you will find that there are so many hints of their previous philosophers. Especially in terms of philosophy, you have to talk to the previous philosophers. That's where your philosophy build upon. And I remember there is a very famous quote. It says that the whole history of the Western philosophy is the footprints of Plato. And you can see it's the case, yes, because many ideas, many subjects were talked about in Plato's works. So, and for Kongzi, I think even though he says he do not innovate, he do not make some new points, but actually he did. He really did. He do some editing. He do some delete. He delete some things. For example, he added the Shi Jing, the poems. He added the history book of Lu, the country Lu, and it's called Chunqiu. So in these two books, he will delete some passages. And why he deletes? Why he why he leaves some passages? Why he takes some away? The reasons reveals his ideas, because he thinks some are better, some are good, or others are not moral or wrong, so he just throw them away. That is very obvious, especially in the book Chunqiu, the history book. So, for example, in this book, you will find a very weird phenomenon. Is that he has different characters for the same act that is dead. When someone die, in this book, there are different characters. I mean, nowadays, when people die, we just say A dies, B dies. We don't change the character, right? But in Chunqiu, for example, when a duke, when he dies, if when he was alive, he was not respect his upper governor, then the Confucius will use a bad word for his death. If he's a good king or a good duke, then the Confucius will use the character that fits it perfectly for him. So in this very subtle way, Confucius shows his opinions. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I didn't know that. It's really subtle that even I was thinking about maybe what you say about certain things. I will also give an example, but even in the editing itself or
Yeah.
selecting of passages, what you quote, what you don't quote, and so on. All right, that's
Yeah.
also very interesting. The example that I was thinking about is the interpretation of the meaning of the word the Zünse. So before Confucius, a Zünse was the ruler basically, and before his time, as in many ancient societies, the ruler gave his power to his son, right? So that the new Zünse was the basically through the bloodline, people who were from the same family. But he interpreted Zünse to be someone who cultivated him or herself, I guess, just himself in his time. And even though, yeah, it doesn't seem like there's something in, but actually it's a huge innovation.
Yes, yes. In this way, you can say Confucius is very democratic
Mm-hmm.
because before, Junzi is only for people who have the political power. But since Kongzi, the Junzi means the people who have virtue. But also, I think he wants the people who has virtue to have power. But that is not usually the case in real life, right? There was a lot of examples that people who have virtue but no power, or people who have power or no virtue. But obvious in Confucius' mind, virtue is more important than power. And also, he's the first teacher in China that teaches ordinary people. I mean, before only the people who is the belongs to the better class, to the upper class, can get education. But Confucius starts to teach people who are like a bachelor's son, who are, I don't know, maybe very regular people's sons to learn knowledge. And this is such a breakthrough. So until nowadays, my own professor, Bai Tongdong, he says that don't give me some, blessings on the official Chinese Teachers' Day, but give me blessings or some greetings on the birthday of Confucius.
Mm.
Because in his mind, that's the real Teachers' Day. Because nowadays, in China, our Teachers' Day is September the 10th. It's
Mhm.
not the birthday of Confucius. Yeah.
Mm. Wow. Yeah, I've heard that it is said in China that Confucius was China's first teacher.
Yes,
Or
the first teacher for ordinary people.
right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah. Yeah, what a teacher he was. I'm sure we will learn more. Also interested in the dialogues he will have with his students. Yeah, do we want to get to some further passages?
Yeah.
Do we still have time? I think so, right?
Yeah. I think we can find out why he likes Joe so much.
Okay, so yeah, let's go to the passages. Let me find it. All right, so we will go to passage 8.20.
OK，舜有臣五人而天下治。武王曰：余有乱臣10人。孔子曰：才难，不其然乎？唐虞之际，于斯为盛，有妇人焉，9人而已。三分天下有其二，以服是因。周之德，其可谓至德也已矣。
Xun had 5 officials, and the empire was well governed. King Wu said, I have 10 capable officials. Confucius commented, how true is it that talent is difficult to come by? The period of Tang and Yu was rich in talent. With a woman amongst them, there were in fact only 9 men. The Zhou continued to serve the Yin when it was in possession of 2/3 of the empire. Its virtue can be said to have been the highest. Yeah, I guess we need some help from you of how to interpret this passage.
Well, I think this chapter demonstrate why uh, Confucius thinks that Zhou is a role model, why he likes it so much. First of all, he thinks that the governor, the King Wu of Zhou, can have many talented people to come to serve him. For example, in his case, Shun is another dynasty. It's even uh, older than Xia dynasty. It's very, very old, even for Confucius. So for Shun, you only have 5 good officials, and then they can help you govern the empire. But King Wu has 10. So that means he's really charismatic. He's really capable. That the great people will come to help him to govern the country. I think this is the first one, and the second one is that the king Wen, that is the father of King Wu, when he owns 2/3 of the empire. Well, by what? Of course, by his virtue, so that the other small governors would like to join him, right? Would like to ruled by him. And when he had 2/3 of the empire, he can obviously overthrew the Shang dynasty, but he didn't. He chose to continue to serve the Shang dynasty until the Zhou dynasty, until the ruler of Shang was too violent. So then he, in the name of the heaven, in the name of God, he overthrew the Shang dynasty. So he's a good ruler, and also he's a good subordinate 臣子. I'm not sure what
Right.
to call it. Yeah.
Yeah, the official, I think it's translated
Yeah,
here.
similar.
Or,
Yeah.
yeah, minister maybe? I don't
Yeah,
know.
minister. Yes, it means that he obeys his upper class, even
Right.
though he really just substitute it. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think this is a very good example of what we were talking before, that we need the context. We need to know why Confucius is praising someone. That was very helpful, I think. I was just wondering what you make of the part where it says also with a woman amongst them, there were in fact only 9 men. So I've also read some commentary, and is it here to say that, yeah, Confucius didn't believe that women were capable in that sense? What do you make of that?
I mean, Confucius lived 2,000 years ago,
Yeah.
so we can't expect him to be a feminist. That's
Yeah, I
obviously.
think, yeah.
And yeah, I think in his times, just the women don't take the public responsibilities, or they don't rule the country. So I don't know. Maybe the 10 people means maybe one of them is the king Wu's wife. Or his other female relatives, maybe. So Confucius think that it doesn't count. This woman doesn't count because maybe this woman just doesn't really rule a part of the country. He's just kind of help, for example, as his wife, to tell him some advice. Maybe that's my guess.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I can also understand. I think it was still worth noting and discussing. I'm sure we will get to
Yes.
that as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I guess maybe for me the takeaway of the passage is that it's very rare that there is actually a capable or good ruler or official. And yeah, as you said, how important it is to have the rule of virtue and not the rule by force.
Yeah.
Yeah, do we want to go to the next passage?
Yes, of course.
Okay. So we will read passage 15:11. Let me just go there quickly.
OK，颜渊问为邦，子曰：行夏之时，成殷之革，服周之冕，乐则少武，放乐声，放正声，远佞人，正声淫，佞人待。
And in English, Yan Yuan asked about the government of a state. The master said, follow the calendar of the Xia, ride in the carriage of the Yin, and wear the ceremonial cap of the Zhou. But for music, adopt the Shao and the Wu. Banish the tunes of Zheng and keep plausible men at a distance. The tunes of Zheng are wanton and plausible men are dangerous. Yeah, again, I think we need some help.
Actually, in this chapter, Yan Yuan asked how to govern a country, and Yan Yuan is Confucius' favorite student. So you can expect that Confucius will answer this question very carefully, right? Because this is his best student. So he says that a country you need to learn from the past dynasty. What do you learn? You learn the calendar from Xia. So he thinks that the Xia's calendar is good for example, good for the agriculture. It's based on the nature. So you need to follow that and do the plannings for your country, and then you will ride the carriages, right? The car maybe in that time of the Shang dynasty. The reason is that I looked something up is that because in Shang dynasty the car is more cheap. It's not that fancy. So Confucius thinks that's better for the country. You know, you don't spend a lot of money on your carriages for example, Benz or Mercedes or your yeah. So he also thinks that a country need to take the rituals and also the clothes for the rituals like Zhou dynasty. So it seems like a contradiction here because the clothes for rituals in Zhou dynasty are very fancy. They're very expensive. But how could you, when you ride cars, when you ride the carriages, you say, okay, no fancy things, right? Just a normal functional carriages is okay. But when it comes to the clothes for rituals, you want fancy ones. Why? The reason is that Confucius think that for the ceremony, for the rituals, it's good or it's moral to spend a lot of money because it's very important for the whole country to to think that the order is important. And what do you how do you show the order? Okay, by the rituals, by the ceremony. So it's worthwhile. It's worthwhile. It's a great deal to spend a lot of money on that. And he said that when you need to hear some music, you hear Shao or hear Wu. These are kind of music that played in the for the upper class. So they're very classy, very elegant. And then Confucius says we want to take away the music of Zheng. Zheng is a country, and the Zheng, the music of Zheng is very, it's very good. It's like pop music now. It's not so elegant. It's not so fancy. It has some, but many people want to hear it, but it's not so good for Confucius. And he said also keep away from the bad people because they're dangerous, because maybe they will say something bad for the government and will later have bad influence of the whole country. Yeah.
Wow.
So maybe I think there is a metaphor here. Maybe he thinks that the music of Zheng is like the bad people's bad opinions. So they both plays a bad role in the governance of people, governance of the country. So he put these two things together.
Okay, wow. So somehow, if you have like bad music, you might also have bad people or bad emotions. That kind of everything goes hand in hand.
Yes. And also in this chapter, you will find that actually Confucius does not only learn from Zhou, he also acknowledged that Shang also have something good, right? We always say that Shang is so violent, so that Zhou overthrew it. But not every governor, not every kings in Zhou is bad. In Shang is bad. Actually, in the first several in the first years, the rulers of Shang were great, but later just the last king of Shang, he is very violent, and he spend a lot of money, and he like enjoys those bad dances, bad music, and also he treat people really badly. And then the king Wu and decided to I need to overthrow this. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So I guess really one important reason why he admired the Zhou so much is that they put so much importance of ritual, and they had very, as you said, fancy ritual clothes, for example.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So, do we want to go to the question whether the Zhou were really so perfect?
Yes, that's a question for a long time for me, because I just don't believe that Zhou is designed by with Confucius ideas. I mean that's not logical, because Confucius was born later, right? Later than the Zhou dynasty was founded. So how could a country that has everything that you wished for, that's not possible. So so we need to find some evidence to show that actually the Zhou dynasty, the real Zhou dynasty, is not 100% in accordance with Confucius' idea. Yeah. So this chapter, I think, which one is it?
It's 3.21.
Okay, 3.21. It says, 哀公问舍于宰我，宰我对曰：夏后氏以松，殷人以柏，周人以栗。曰：使民战栗。子闻之，曰：成事不说，遂事不见，既往不咎。
Duke Ai asked Caiwo about the altar to the god of earth. Caiwo replied, the Xia used the pine, the Yin used the cedar, and the men of Zhou used the chestnut, saying that it made the common people tremble. The master, on hearing of this reply, commented, one does not explain away what is already done. One does not advise against what is already accomplished, and one does not condemn what has already gone by.
Yeah, so in this chapter, Ai Gong Duke Ai, he's kind of a king or of a country. So he asked a student of Confucius, Zai Wo, and Zai Wo tell him, right, in history, what kind of wood that this dynasty used to pray for their god of land. So he says that in Xia dynasty, they used the wood of song. They used the pine, right? And in that Yin is Shang. So in Shang dynasty, people use the cedar. That's kind of also a kind of wood to pray. And in Zhou dynasty, they use the wood of chestnut. And in Chinese it pronounced as li. And the reason they use that, because it sounds like another word, 站立. Nowadays we also use the word 站立, but it's very formal. It means that you are trembling, you are so afraid. So they think that we use this kind of wood, then it means that we can make people tremble for our power. So here you can see that this is this is the dark side of Zhou, right? A little bit dark side. It means that Zhou actually want the Zhou dynasty, the ruler of Zhou dynasty, wants his people to be afraid of him. This is like a little bit like Machiavelli. Is this
Yeah,
pronounced
Machiavelli,
right?
yeah.
Machiavelli, right? Let the people be afraid of me. It's not in accordance it's not in line with Confucius' idea that we need to govern by benevolence, right? If you govern by benevolence, why would the people be afraid of you? Why would you want your people to be afraid? So it's very interesting that how Confucius reacts the Zai was saying, and he says that, as you mentioned before, if something is done, let's don't bring it up, right? If something wrong, if something bad, someone did, we don't blame him again. So this is like when you are a fan of Taylor Swift and your friend says, well, Taylor Swift stole my cookie when I was 9 years old. And this your friend just said, okay, 20 years passed, that's no big deal. Don't bring it up. Actually, at this moment, you feel a little bit embarrassed for Taylor Swift, right? But you just want to say, my idol is perfect, so just shut up. That's no big deal. A cookie is no big deal.
Well,
so, but in this case, of course, it's not that small piece of cake. But
yeah.
I think it's the kind of the same. When Confucius, he likes Zhou so much, but his student says there's something a little bit bad about Zhou, and he says, okay, shut up. That's no big deal. It's past. Okay,
Yes.
we don't bring it up. We don't blame it at all.
But in a way, he also admits that not everything was perfect, right?
Yes, he admit that exists, but he just think maybe there's something more important about Zhou that we can learn from. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, I didn't know about that. Thank you. Really, really cool. Yeah, so I think that these are all the passages that we wanted to read for today. I hope the listeners and viewers can also have been able to understand it with our help, especially your help. And now I was wondering, because we call our podcast, our channel, Confucius in Life, and it's not only our goal to read Confucius, even though I think it's also a valuable goal, but then to ask always, okay, what can we learn for our own life? And first I thought, well, okay, the first episode is just a historical context, so, well, maybe we start later with this question, but actually we might be able to ask the question of, well, since Confucius lived in a much different time than we do now, is his philosophy still relevant? What do you think?
I think even 20 years ago, 20 years passed, but still today, now we need to live in the country, and the country we need to be governed in some sort of forms. We need a system within the regime. Then I think each time when you comment on the presidents, when you comment on these systems, actually you're talking about the same problems as Confucius. So in Confucius, he lives in the spring and autumn era, right? So back in his time, the Zhou dynasty is falling apart, though not that obvious, but a little bit, you can see a little bit hints of that falling apart. So he's trying to bring out his idea of about how a good country should be governed, the good way of governing. And I think this is a question, this is a subject that will be nonstop. When you talk about how Donald Trump is, how president, in your country, in my country, how our neighborhood is, you are talking about politics. And we're talking about the same thing that Confucius is talking about all the time. But on the other hand, so this is relevant. And on the other hand, Confucius, he talked about how you should become a 君子, how you should become a people of virtue. Although back in his time, he only talks about men, right? Men become a 君子, or the people who have power should have more self-discipline, should have more virtue, so they could be have power and have virtue at the same time. This combination, that's the best combination. But nowadays, of course, we don't have power, but I think virtue is that what we can have. And I think virtue is not something we have to brag about. It's not something that we uh, need to show. I think by reading Confucius, by reading the Analects, you will find that you can benefit for yourself, and you are solving the question, how should I live my life? And I think the same question. That's exactly the same question that everyone should think about: the meaning of life. Even for Plato, even for Aristotle, even for you, even for me. And I think Confucius gave some answers, and also his great students gave great questions. So his students asked for us, and after you reading the Analects, you can also ask the Confucius in your mind, and maybe he will answer.
Oh, yeah, beautifully put. Thank you so much. Yeah, so the big questions will always be the big questions, and Confucius is
Yes.
someone who gave great answers. So, of course, it's worth studying him. When I was reflecting on that, I was almost a bit more concrete because, we in this episode gave the historical context, right? With the idea that, well, the historical context, of course, is important also to understand the philosopher because it influenced the philosopher. And so, well, if the historical context is very different, then yeah, is it still comparable in a way? And then I thought, well, of course, in many ways, it's much different. 2,500 years later, but I also thought that, well, it's interesting that certain things might be, well, not similar, but there are some analogies maybe that, for example, especially in Western countries, what we have heard and seen is more polarization maybe. I think also less ritual. I think, yeah, religion has become much less important, but also I think also ritual, I think, is something that many people now think of as something that is just superstition. It's just something, maybe some strange thing that people used to do because they had some misunderstanding about the universe, in a way, to put it a bit exaggerated terms. And when I was reading Confucius and with the help of you started to understand it, I really started to appreciate ritual and that how it might also affect you, and that somehow I am affected or by ritual or the absence of ritual. I think this is something that is also worth studying and learning about, even of maybe if it's not the same ritual or we don't have to, but just to understand it. And then the second thing I thought is that, well, the idea of self-cultivation is really important in Confucius thought, as we've heard already today. And yeah, it might not be the same as self-optimization, which I think in nowadays in Western countries, or yeah, maybe around the world, is becoming more important. Or I mean, I have to admit, I also sometimes think, okay, the better food, the better workout, and all these things. I don't think this is the same thing that Confucius was thinking about. But yeah, I think it's still worth investigating and understanding, because I think really the motivation of why people want to really work on themselves isn't, it's maybe also to be more successful and so on. But I also think, yeah, many people, they really want to better themselves. I think it's fair to say. And yeah, I think Confucius also has something valuable to offer here.
Yes.
Yeah, and I hope that with your help, that we
With
can,
our help.
with our help, we will be able to understand the historical context of Confucius and then see, okay, well, maybe some things are past, but maybe some things are worth preserving or worth revivifying or making alive again. And I think this is a very interesting yeah, interesting endeavor, an interesting activity. And yeah, I hope it can maybe even inspire other people. It certainly has inspired me a lot, and it's a lot of fun to do it with you.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. So yeah, thank you. Um, so I guess we could close the episode. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you so much.
Okay. Bye bye.
Bye bye, bye bye, bye bye.